Today's video completely centered around Lumix GH series cameras. If you're familiar with the channel or you're new to the channel, I have owned the GH4, the GH5, and just recently the Lumix GH7 arrived at my house. So today is a little bit of an insight, first reactions with the camera. You guys can see we've got a rigged out GH5. Sorry, no wires on there. Wanted to keep it kind of clean. We've got the GH4 just for a reference point that this is where it all started. This camera still is being put to use in 2024. But if you're wondering, had a great experience with the GH4, a fantastic experience with the GH5, and this is the thoughts of someone that has been in the GH series, I guess, setup or lineup for quite a while. What my thoughts are right out of the box with the GH7. Holy cow, this is a beast of a camera. Bigger camera than the GH5 and the GH4. And I've seen that they've evolved, like the GH4, pretty small in hand. We go to the GH5, it gets a little bit bigger. Now we're with the GH7. We've got fans built in. We've got a unique flip out screen, full HDMI, which we had with the GH5, but now we've got that. Plus we've got USB-C power, which is really something I hone in on, as I used to use full D-tap into my cameras, but I actually fried my S5 probably about a year ago. So my go-to nowadays, whether it's the Lumix GH7, the Lumix S5 2X, everything's being powered from V-mount battery, but through the USB so that I don't end up surging the camera. Now I haven't had any issues at all when it comes to running power off of here. And when it comes to this camera, the elephant in the room that these two cameras didn't provide that this one does is autofocus, and I've been very impressed. So if any of you guys have had any experience with the S5 II series and its autofocus, you're gonna get similar results when it comes to the GH7. Now, I will say this, and this could be on me, but this is something I want to bring to your attention. Many of you are familiar. I love using speed boosters, particularly the Metabone speed booster when it comes to Micro Four Thirds cameras, particularly because I have a lot of EF mount glass, particularly Canon. So as just mentioned, I absolutely love using the Micro Four Thirds cameras, and in particular throwing on speed boosters, whether it be the Metabone speed booster adapter. Also have the old school Comlight. Now these basically are used to take advantage of my EF mount glass. So we've got the 70-200, we've got the nifty 50, and currently we're actually rolling with the 24-105 on the S5 2X. Now, as mentioned, autofocus, what I've found at this point is I was just experimenting with the 24-105 quite a bit on the GH7, and as mentioned, if I click on the kind of record button or whatnot, it will lock focus and work fine. So the autofocus is fine. But then if I go to continuous autofocus, I'm really not having much success with it. So I also wanted to test out the nifty 50, which we did with the Metabone speed booster. So if you're wondering, speed booster here, pretty much in place, and we'll switch it out. The nifty 50. Some of you are going to kill me because I'm exposing that, but okay. So let's say, for instance, the nifty 50 is on there, and this particular lens is so old and so cheap, I don't really find that you get really good autofocus results with this. But I will say, even when I put it on there and I want it to kind of search for autofocus, it'll get it, but it takes a second. Now this is a $100 lens, so I want you to take it in consideration. But I want to give you an example with the 70-200. This is the one that's kind of been upsetting me a little bit because I did update the Metabone speed booster as far as its firmware so that I can take advantage of the autofocus. Now, we've got the 70-200 on here. Autofocus is going, and I'm just going to lightly hit that record button, and okay, it pulled focus pretty solid there. Let's actually go ahead, try another. So it's working okay. And so I'm not here to knock this setup. I just want to inform some of you guys, if you're still rocking the Metabone speed boosters, you've updated the firmware, you're using older glass like myself and non-native, you might run up against the autofocus will work, but it is not going to be nearly as reliable as if I use the 25mm f1.7 native class. It's just going to function. It's what the camera kind of wants a little bit more than these boosters. But if you are going the adapter route, just have no fear. Your glass is still going to work the same. It's just probably like many of you are used to. It's still, I mean, this lens is absolutely ancient, and so I can't have a full expectation of it getting superior autofocus, but I will say of the three, the Nifty 50, the 70-200, and the 24-105, the 24-105 has gotten me the best results as far as quickness and locking in focus. But then we kind of slap on native class, and this is where I have to admit, for the first time in a GH series camera, we have autofocus, and I'm just goofing around with it here right now. Actually, I don't have a card in here, but it's just nice to be able to, with that native glass, if I've just got center focus, I just go ahead and pull it around, pan up, and boom, I've already got the shot that I want. It's just a nice feature that many of us that have been in Lumix kind of camp have not had for a while. But other things that I've found interesting, and I'm not going to say are good or bad, and let's go ahead and talk about card slots. So on this camera, we've got two card slots. We've got a CFast card slot, and we've got our traditional SD cards. Now, I might be butchering that, but I will tell you this in regards to the SD cards, that's my go-to. I love that. On the S5 IIX, we have two of these. This one we have the CFast capabilities. Now, I will say you also have the ability to record to SD, an internal SSD drive, which is an option through USB-C. But CFast, this is something where I would say guys that are a little bit more advanced than me looking to take full advantage of the codecs on this camera and do it internally, that's going to be a great option. But I would just say a shooter like myself, I would want two slots for the SDs, but it's not a maker or breaker on this particular camera. Now, as far as the flip out screen goes, many of you are familiar with this particular flip out setup. I will say the only difference is you're going to have the ability to tilt out, which is nice. It's a different feature. It's something that I definitely don't necessarily need, but it's on there. And then if you guys are wondering here as far as the camera setup and how we're powering everything, V-mount power, which is really nice. We can slide it right off there, no biggie, and then we mount it back into place. We've got USB-C power, so USB to USB-C on the side here, which is great because while it doesn't completely recharge the battery, I would say it extends the battery life almost double. Wires are pretty simple and easy. You can probably see here, and then we're going into the side of our USB port here, and then we have D-tap for the monitor. Try to do our best to hide some of these cables, but it is what it is. I feel like a lot of people, when they do their reviews, they actually don't show the wires, and it's like, I know it looks clean, but like that's not actually how it's gonna look. So, you know, that's the setup with the GH7, and for many of you out there, I've mentioned this video is more centered around just like an out-of-the-box impression, and what's nice is I've done two projects, currently just shot a documentary, and I'll show you guys some of the BTS. I can't actually show you the interview footage yet because it hasn't been released. And then we've also done the What the Health Just Happened podcast where we filmed Eric, and he is our actually host. So GH7 was on the host, Lumix S5 IIX was on the guest, and then we had the GH5 as our wide shot. And I went full autofocus, basically face tracking with the 25 f1.7. You guys are seeing the footage. We shot it in Rec 709. No reason to go log footage in that particular type of shoot because we need more. Turnaround is more of like kind of what's needed rather than it being so cinematic or beautiful. But the camera held its own, and the goal here is a quick out-of-the-box thoughts, very similar to many of the GH series cameras, but that autofocus for me, and I keep saying for me, is what's really gotten me excited. Those capabilities, being able to just have that camera there, put that AF tracking on, and it just letting it rip, and it's still looking beautiful and a solid image. So the goal here, talk about it a little bit right out of the box, but also to tell you my plan is really just to side-by-side show you how this functions when it comes to up against the Lumix S5 IIX and the old school GH5, and we'll goof around with different types of lenses, autofocus, no autofocus, and I'll document that more and more when it comes to the podcast and doing behind the scenes so that you guys can get an understanding that this is a camera that you need to add to your arsenal. Is it an absolute must? Currently, I would say probably not. But as mentioned, as a one-man band operation and have autofocus capabilities, it's been really nice. And I have to give a disclaimer, I've lucked out because I've been a part of the Lumix Creators Backstage group, which has allowed me to get these cameras in my hand. They've never really asked me to say anything about it because for most of you, you probably already know, or you will soon to know that I center a lot of my focus around Lumix cameras because I bought them years ago, was impressed. They were reliable, they didn't overheat, they had unlimited recording times, 4K, all these different codecs, and the IBIS has been out of this world, but it's been always lacking autofocus, and they just gave it to us recently in the S5 series cameras, the 2 series, and then they gave it to us in the GH7, and I want to say in the GH9 as well. So Lumix is pushing that autofocus. I've been happy with it. It's taking a camera that I already loved and just taking it to that next step. So rather than my opinion, I want your opinion about what do you think? Waste of cash, waste of time, is the autofocus worth it? It's not necessarily about me, it's more about what you think. So hey guys, it's Trey Lowell here with Lowell Productions, and as always, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like the content I keep creating here on the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And Lumix cameras, man, I